Hi, Kirsty. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. So thanks for coming in today. Last time you were here, we talked about you possibly filling out the Myers-Briggs type indicator. So it looks like you did that. So we're going to just kind of go ahead and go over the results.
Okay.
So basically what this is it basically just helps you kind of figure out what it is that you are interested in, kind of grouped into families. So it will kind of tell you what, based on your interests and your kind of personality type, what fields might be good for you.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and kind of just go through your results. So the results for the Myers-Briggs are reported by letter. So you can either be E for extroversion or I for introversion. You can either be S for sensing or I for intuition, T for thinking, F for feeling, and J for judging, P for perceiving. So based on how you answer the questions, you kind of fall along the spectrum for those letters. So starting with yours here, it looks like you scored an I for introversion. So people who prefer introversion tend to focus on the inner world of ideas and impressions. So that's a little bit different than extroversion, where these people focus on the outer world of people and activity. Were you surprised at all by your introversion results?
Kinda, yeah. I thought I'd be like more extroversion, but I can definitely see why I scored higher on the introversion.
Okay, yeah. And I think something to remember is that this doesn't necessarily mean that you are an introvert and you need to stop hanging out with your friends and doing social things. This is just kind of an idea of where you fell on the spectrum, and if you fell closer to introversion or extroversion, and that kind of works for all the letters. So I definitely don't want you to think that it's something where you are defined in this category.
Okay.
This is more so a tool. So that was where you focus your attention. So now moving on to the way you take in information. So we had the S and the I, and then you did score on the sensing side rather than the intuition side. So people who prefer sensing tend to take in information through the five senses and focus on the here and now. Whereas people who score on the intuition side, they tend to take information from patterns and big picture, and they kind of focus on the future. So does sensing make sense to you and seem like it's accurate to you where you're living in the here and now?
Absolutely.
Okay. So how do you feel that you do that kind of in your life now?
I'm definitely like able to like plan ahead for like the big things, but I kind of just take things day by day and like as they come and not focus too far in the future. So it definitely makes more sense to me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad that these are kind of making sense to you and you're really not surprised by the results. That's good. Moving down to the way you make decisions. So this is where we had thinking and feeling. Thinking are the people who make decisions based primarily on logic. They analyze cause and effect, that sort of thing. Individuals who score higher on feeling are definitely going to be the people who make decisions based on values and on subjective evaluation of person-centered concerns. So you're pursuing a career in counseling, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So how does that feel getting the feeling result there?
It feels good, yeah.
Kind of feels like it makes sense with what you're going into.
Yeah, and my boss told me I like tend to go towards like the person-centered approach in counseling, so that totally makes sense that I'm more feeling than thinking.
Yeah, awesome. And then the last category is how you deal with the outer world. So you have judging and perceiving. Judging doesn't necessarily mean you judge everything. Maybe so, no. But judging is people who like to be organized, planned. They want to have things settled, organized in a row. The perceiving people tend to be a little more flexible, spontaneous, and they want to keep their opinions kind of open and their options open. You did score on the judging side of that. So are you someone who definitely, you said you can plan for a big event. Do you find yourself being pretty organized and planned?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're not really surprised by many of these results.
Mm-mm.
Okay, and you had mentioned how you could see yourself scoring in extroversion, but that you understand why you scored more towards the introversion. Cool, sounds good. So again, just this chart here is kind of showing where on the spectrum you fell. So towards introversion, you had an 8, which is in the moderate level. Towards sensing, you only scored a 2. So I think that means you kind of have a little bit of both, maybe just slightly towards sensing. So that's nice to know that in your counseling career, the way you take in information can kind of go both ways. Sensing and intuition. On the feeling spectrum, you had a 5, which is kind of the borderline between slight and moderate. And then judging, you had a 4. So all of your results kind of fall pretty close to the median. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like that makes sense to you?
A little bit, yeah. So I remember, like, trying to, like, do it, like, answer the questions, and I was like, I feel like I'm getting asked the same questions repeated, and, like, some of them are really hard, like, well, sometimes I think this, but other times I think this, and most of the time I think it's this, so I'm going to go with this. So it makes sense that I'm, like, right in the slight, like, middle area.
Yeah, I think that totally makes sense that you wanted to answer the questions in different ways, so you were kind of maybe torn on a few, and then it kind of just fell out that way. So definitely makes sense. Sounds like it does, at least. So how your type affects career choices. So basically, based on your results, they've kind of narrowed it down for preferred work tasks. So providing practical help to others fits pretty much right in with what you're trying to do. Organizing people to accomplish a goal, devising efficient procedures to meet goals, serving the needs of others, building consensus quietly. So this is pretty much a lot of what counseling is, working towards goals, working with people to help achieve goals. I'm not sure if you do any like group counseling. Do you like, are you interested in facilitating groups? Then that would totally make sense. Why you want to work with others to meet a goal. As far as your preferred work environment, is financially sound and stable, values loyalty, allows time for family and or friends, creates a sense of belonging, and has coworkers who care about and support one another. So it sounds like you kind of would rather have a job where you interact with people rather than sitting in a cubicle.
Yeah.
Does that sound about right? Okay. And do you find that you do value finances and you do value a job that provides for you? Is it, is that important to you in a career?
Yes and no. Like, obviously you need to get paid, but like, I would rather have a job where you don't get paid as much, where you feel like you're actually like providing like something and you're like giving back to
it's
the
about
world,
more than just a paycheck.
rather than like you're pissing everyone off. You're saying kind of like, screw you, I'm gonna make all the money I can and I don't care about you. So
yeah, okay. So I think excuse me. So I think that definitely makes sense, and this is definitely something to look at for the career that you're interested in. And we've talked about that, but kind of identifying where those preferred environments and tasks fit into your career. Like I said, we did talk about that, but that would just be something that you could visit again. Your type strengths will help you set clear and specific goals, develop a plan, so kind of all those things we were just talking about, collecting facts to help you make a decision, come across as thoughtful and personable, convey a detailed picture of your experience during interviews. So I think that all of that kind of fits in with what you were saying, how you want to have other people in mind. You don't want to just kind of, say screw you and make your own way.
yeah.
So does that all kind of sound like you? Okay. Some challenges. So based on your type, You might miss opportunities because you are reluctant to do the necessary networking. You may not appear sufficiently task-oriented to thinking interviewers. You may make decisions that you think will please others. You may hesitate to sell your potential contribution strongly enough during interviews, and you may not consider the logical consequences of your decisions. How do those challenges feel to you?
Like bullshit.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So what makes you think that they really don't make sense?
Because I'm pretty good at advertising my strengths in interviews.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's a time and a place for it. Also, even though I am loyal to a company, but if I see something that's better, I'm not afraid to go and network out for it. Especially working as a case manager now, that's literally all I do is networking. So that totally just
throws you off.
Yeah.
Well, and here's something I think we can consider with that. So again, these are not set in stone. And if we think back, you scored really middle of the road for a lot of these things. So I think this is probably based on, if we had to pick challenges based on what you said, these might be it. It sounds like since there were some that were kind of right on the border there, maybe that's where they preyed on the challenges, where you kind of could see things a little bit differently. Suggested strategies to help work with those challenges. Start with close friends and then gradually expand your networking list. Convey how your people skills can help the bottom line. Before directing, reflect on what is truly important to you. Role play interviews with a friend or career professional. Use a checklist to make sure you cover important points, or make a list of pros and cons to each of your options. Do those all sound like things that you kind of already do now?
Besides role playing, I don't.
Yeah. But other than that, they kind of make sense.
Yeah, I just can't imagine role playing, playing oh, I have a job interview, will you?
Right. And I think that those, the suggested strategies, those kind of sound, with the exception of the role playing, those kind of sound like things you are already doing. Mm-hmm. So maybe without even realizing that these could be challenges for you, you're already doing them you're already overcoming those on your own. So maybe that's why these come as a surprise to you.
Okay.
But you are already handling those.
Okay.
So moving on to more just how your type affects your career development. Your style has probably helped you with organizing people to meet a goal, patiently working your way through problem solving step by step, devising efficient procedures to help others accomplish day-to-day tasks, applying common sense and experience to problems, following through on commitments to others. Basically sound based on your current profession and where you want to go, those all sound to me like things that you probably have developed through your strengths.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like it, kind of based on everything we've been talking about. Some challenges, again, it's saying here that you lack assertiveness, or you could, but based on kind of what we talked about, it doesn't seem like that's really a struggle for you. And maybe just based on your life experience, you've kind of created this strong exterior. And I don't think this takes into account any life experience we've had, things like that. So you work as a case manager. You've probably seen quite a bit. So you probably have mastered keeping your calm, your patience. And I think you've probably, maybe when you started your career, you didn't have as much assertiveness, but feel like you've probably definitely built up a tolerance and, built up that strength. Some of the things they suggest are just, taking some classes. Again, practice role playing. We talked about how that's not really something you would be interested in doing, but maybe something. So it's saying here that you could have a challenge with your contributors may not be recognized because of your reluctance to take credit, or your contributions, sorry. But But like you said, it sounds like you're pretty knowledgeable of yourself and your strengths. It doesn't seem like you're shy to celebrate your successes, which I think is really good. You said you do a lot of networking for your job already, so keeping a list of your contributions to meetings or projects, share this with your supervisor. As a case manager, I'm sure that you work really closely with a supervisor. I'm sure that you're sharing a lot of information with her, and I'm sure that she can see those strengths through the work you do. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Job, families, and occupations for your ISFJ. Let's see. So this is basically just kind of giving you broad occupations based on your ranking and popularity among people who were also ISFJs. So some of the occupations that they have, the highest one is healthcare support. Nurse's aide, veterinary assistant, pharmacy aide, physical therapy aide. Second job was office and administrative support, like a bank teller, receptionist, clerical services, legal secretary. And then your third one was healthcare practitioner or technical operations. So pediatrician, dentist, physical therapist, lab technician. How do those sound to you?
All definitely completely not me and completely wrong.
Okay. So does that like make you frustrated at all? Do you feel kind of discouraged? Is there anything you're feeling towards that, or just kind of like, I don't even care, this just doesn't sound like me?
I feel like taking this assessment was kind of a joke because it doesn't...
You don't feel like it's accurately describing you?
No. I mean, you can't really get to know a person based on, like, one assessment that was, like, 100 questions or so. So, like, I get it, but it's just not really... Some areas it's really hitting home, in other areas I'm like,
Right. Like, you can see some things more than others.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that all of those jobs just listed there, maybe they're not exactly what you want to do, but it sounds like all of them are people-oriented.
True.
So working with other people in some capacity, we've already talked about how you're not really a cubicle person. You're not really someone to just crunch numbers and move on. You like to work with people and you like to help people. So although those aren't jobs that are attractive to you, I think we can see a little bit of the similarities.
Okay.
Does that sound
Yeah.
a little bit? Yeah. Moderate jobs, so community and social services. This is a community service manager, career counselor, clergy or social worker, personal care and service, like managers, personal trainers, hairdressers, child care providers, education, library services and training, teachers, librarians, school administrators, university faculty, food prep and service, and then building and grounds maintenance. So in this category, the highest one you had was a 54, and that was the community and social services. So are you surprised at how low you scored on these? Do you think they would be a little higher? What do you think about that?
I thought they would definitely be higher, but like I said, how accurate can this really be when you literally just like take 100 questions?
Yeah, so it's like there's definitely like kind of like an exhausting factor to taking tests like this. So it definitely is possible that when you're taking it, you know, you kind of lose track or you're not as focused as you were for the first 20 questions. Yeah. So it's possible that, and that could also be part of why you scored kind of right down the middle for a lot of the questions. So we talked about that a little bit. The rest of them, the least attractive jobs for you. So it sounds like a lot of sales and advertising, architecture and engineering, construction and extracted, farming, arts design, biologist, chemist.
Now,
so
all of those seem pretty accurate.
Yeah, so now it sounds like we're kind of weeding out what you don't want to do. We're not, this isn't 100% sure what you do want to do, but we know what you don't like.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so you're not surprised by any of those? No. Okay. I didn't think so. So, kind of just finishing up here, going over those most popular occupations for your type. So we have like licensed practical nurse, bank teller, secretary, management of like hospitalities, kind of all these jobs that we talked about might not be exactly for you, but all kind of have that common theme of working with others. And I think it's kind of clear to say that we were able to weed out all of those other mathy, sciencey professions. And then that brings us to the least popular occupations. So all of those like economics, infantry member. I don't think you're really interested in going into the military, are you? Yeah, so tax examiner, architecture, all those types of things. So how do you feel basically about the assessment in general? We had kind of talked about how you kind of disagree with its accuracy and don't really see the merit in it completely.
I mean, I like that it was definitely like more condensed than like the SII that we did. So I did like that. And it did point out like some similarities to me, so I do appreciate that. And like you said, it definitely did a good job of weeding out what I don't like. So maybe that's just the first step, is just finding out what you don't like and then building it from there.
Yeah. And it sounds like you have a pretty good idea of what you want to do, and these can kind of just be used as tools to help maybe discover some things you hadn't thought about before. And maybe that's as far as it goes with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, do you have any other questions or anything? Okay, well, I encourage you to think about this, and then we will kind of pick up on some more career exploration next week.
Okay.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Kirsty.
Bye.